Chapter 3. The Will of the Wise. I bet you could be the king of gluttony now. On the second floor of Baragaru's house in the uptown area of the old capital of a certain continent on the planet Iberium, Sena was eating a large meal under the light of a small magical crystal lamp. The armored door and thick curtains were closed to prevent the light from leaking outside. The formation of the magic organ during the magical cold and the energy consumption used for it was so great that Sena's body was just skin and bones. His body, judging that his life was in danger, asked for food day and night in almost 2-hour rotations. He was like a newborn baby. Thanks for the food. Sorry to bother you at this time of night. No, I don't need a lot of sleep, just about 15 minutes at a time, split up over several nights. Serving Sena was a lovely-looking kobold. Its slender back looked like a woman with long hair. Although it was a demon, it was easily accustomed to people and was treated as a subspecies or half-breed in some areas. I was surprised when you appeared as me. Oh, me. Sena appeared in front of Sena when Baragaru called him. The only thing was that he was wearing this style of clothing on his normal body before he became thin. Holy shit, is that? Ha ha ha. Are you surprised? Hey, Nana, that's enough. Yes, master. And just as the space began to shimmer, Sena's figure transformed into that of a pure white fox or marten-like animal walking on 2 legs. This is a Koan kobold. He's a subspecies of kobold. He's my familiar. Familiar? His slender figure was about the size of a young elementary school student, and if he were as tall as an adult, he would look like a beautiful, foxy beast of a boy. It's quite a lovely messenger. Gahaha. That's right, that's right. He's a male, by the way, so don't let the fact that he's cute put you off. I'm sure you'll be happy to know that I'm not the only one who's a bit of a jerk. If you're one of them, I'll immediately send you to the Potions Guild and sacrifice you to the talented pervert. I don't have that kind of taste, so there's no problem. Baragaru glared at Sena with the kind of look he would give to a man who has come to marry his beloved daughter. But the shapeshifting ability is amazing. Oh, that's the artifact magic of change that Nana has. It's not a shapeshifter, but it contains magic that misleads the sight and touch of others. It's also a part of your debt, but don't worry, it will be his. Whoa, you've got an artifact item. And you are disguised as me, maybe as cover? Yeah, so we can pretend that your sickness was short-lived. He's been wandering around town in your form for about 2 weeks, so I'm sure you'll be recognized, especially by those in the customer service business. When your body recovers to the point where it is comfortable, you will be given a lecture on how to travel so that you can successfully switch places with Nana. Following Baragaru's words, Nana stepped forward and bowed with a soft gesture, but surprisingly firm words. I will take care of you from now on, so if there is anything you need, please do not hesitate to ask. It's nice to meet you. Then again, you're not all that different from people, are you? Or are these Koan kobolds a particularly clever species? No, it's not normally this intelligent. It's another piece of technology I developed in college using magic crystals. It's a kind of auxiliary brain, linked to the main body to make it as intelligent as a human. Even if Nana dies for some reason, another individual can have the same intelligence and memories if they are linked to it. Well, the personality depends on the body, so it can't be said to be exactly the same. That far. Hearing of a laboratory animal with such a high level of intelligence reminded Sena of the time when Fuku was captured by Tarrant, and he felt a little disgusted. He wondered what Nana would think about it. There are many pros and cons to this, but it takes time to find and train the right person to be a messenger. And they can only do simple tasks. Of course, if you use magic as a link, you can give complex instructions, but that places a heavy burden on the demon. If you don't let them get used to it, they could reject it, and if you're not good at it, they will be disposable for the moment. But with this technology, as you can see, after a short period of training, the load on the demon is almost unrecognizable. I will be the 7th user for the Master. All of my predecessors in the auxiliaries records seem to have been fond of the Master. Of course, so am I. The smile on his face was not out of place. In a way, this may be in line with the original habit of the Koan kobold species. 7th generation? I started out with smaller, shorter-lived demons. I've been doing this for about 25 years so far. Philosopher's Stone? I'm a more advanced intelligence. How dare you call yourself a sage when you're at such an early stage, like a baby? The voice that suddenly shouted was the Philosopher's Stone installed in Sena. Shut up for a second. We'll talk later. Gahahaha. I know it's a bit of a big name myself, but does it sound familiar? Baragaru asked, misunderstanding Sena's condition. Well, I've heard similar names in stories and stuff. Yes, that's right. You heard about it before. Well, it's a common name, considering its function. I could have lifted my disguise when I entered the house, but Master said he wanted to see Sena-sama's surprise. The way he smiled mischievously was so adorable that Sena could almost forgive him a little bit, and he could see why the talented pervert Baragaru knew would want Nana to dress up as a woman. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying. I apologize for being such a childish master. I've known people like that. And it was interesting to see something so rare right in front of my eyes. Cousin. I appreciate you saying that. The way he tilted his head was really adorable. If you took them to Japan, they would surely be very popular with some enthusiasts. And like that talented pervert, Sena wondered if Tsukiko-san would hit her for trying to make him wear a skirt? Correct. I'll be waiting in the next room, so please don't hesitate to call me. Nana put the entire meal in his magic bag, bowed gracefully, and left. I'm sure the maid's uniform suits you very well. Because I'm male. She's not even a man's daughter. But I hate that guy. Don't be sulky just because you have the same name. You're the same kind of beings to begin with, and you're a much higher-ranking being, aren't you? I hate the fact that you think I'm cute. The meaning of cute is quite different from yours. Please stay back for a while. Oh, it's the usual Tokoroden. So, I'll stay back while you go out? Don't use food as an analogy. Sena quickly ran upstairs to the bathroom, which was already a pleasant experience. Then again, I've been through a lot of weird stuff. The current situation was problematic in many ways, but the change in the Philosopher's Stone was also an issue. It was only after the first introduction of Nana that Sena was able to have a detailed discussion with the Philosopher's Stone. Master, he's only just awakened. Besides, your meeting with Herrera is about to begin. Oh, is it that time already? Anyway, I'm going to leave Nana here so you can get some more rest. I mean, I'm sure you'll be hungry soon, so we'll have to eat first. He then stroked Nana's head with a good-natured expression, handed him the magic bag, and quickly left the room. Philosopher's Stone, what's the status? Sena finished his meal, and after making sure Nana's presence had disappeared downstairs, he spoke to her to try to follow up. Baragaru doesn't seem to be a bad guy, but it's also dangerous to believe everything he says. As long as we can't ask for help from anywhere, we should get accurate information from other sources. In addition, the fact that we are under the influence of magical elements, which are incompatible with science and technology, is another cause for concern. There's no contradiction in Baragaru's explanation. He isolated me from my friends early on and took turns with that messenger named Nana to take proper care of me. That's true. It was a relief. But, hey, I know I asked for more conversation, but did you have to change the audio? The voice of the Philosopher's Stone was originally that of a woman, clerical and stiff, but now, perhaps due to a change in the way she spoke, she now had a familiar, lustrous voice. Is that what you think of Tsukiko's voice? Of course, it's a temporary change. But if I'm going to go to, I want to adjust it to my beloved husband's taste. My beloved husband, you say? He had said that he wanted her to speak in a friendly manner, but this was a statement that exceeded that limit. Sena felt a chill run down his spine as he felt a little bad. Of course, it wasn't because of the magic fever, and for some reason, there was an unpleasant sense of nostalgia. The name, Philosopher's Stone, doesn't sound good either. Having the same name is confusing. It's the same as being called human or female. Please leave it as interim for now. Also, since I'm going out of my way, I want to create an appearance. Something about the tone of the Philosopher's Stone, interim, began to take on emotion. Hold on. What's going on? Are you broken? Could it be because of the magical element? Since the magical element was incompatible with technology, It was possible that it had affected the Philosopher's Stone interim and made it crazy. Sana was worried about that and how it might affect his bioenhancement. Yes, I may indeed be broken. The original function of the Philosopher's Stone has been compromised, and I can no longer access Washisama's databank. Whoa, hey, that's not good. Yes, I'm having a few problems. First of all, I've lost my current location. This is partly due to the influence of magical elements and other factors, but the terrain data for ZINV and other basic data exist in my mind, although they are inaccessible. As soon as it's recovered, I can determine the location from the surrounding terrain, and Baragaru knows the place where Sana was rescued, so it's not a big problem. However, as I reported earlier, a large part of my detection function has been lost. Can you restore the function? Sana was used to trouble, so he wasn't too upset. For now, as long as he knew that he was not in danger, it was business as usual. I am only talking about the current stage. I am broken as an NB, but I have changed into a different being, or perhaps I have evolved. As an installed NB, I have formed a separate personality from Sana's auxiliary device. Is it an independent personality? Could it be that it's an astral program like Kirchi and Mickey? If anything, that was more surprising. There is no way to tell here whether or not I have an astral. But the presence or absence of an astral is only an indicator of how others will treat me. At least I am aware of the existence of myself. The rest depends on what you think, Sana. I think, therefore I am. Because of the problems I had with NB. I asked Washu for various things from a safety standpoint, though Sana didn't want a dubious device like NB, but it seemed to have become more complicated than that. I am sure that this personality of mine is influenced in its composition by the people and actions that Sana-san has met and that have left a lasting impression on him. So, I'm sorry, but it is an irresistible force. Well, certainly. I guess we have no choice. Considering that coming to a world with magical elements was due to Sana's probability bias, it was not reasonable to blame the Philosopher's Stone interim. If personality development was influenced by what a child saw and heard during the process of growth, it was inevitable that Sito, Mikami, Eri and Eri and Eri and Eri and Eri, he said it according to the ratio of adverse effects, were having an influence there. Just when I thought I could finally say goodbye to Eri's strange NB, is it because of the magical element that you were established as a personality in the first place? That's certainly possible. But since we're here, let's start with my appearance. Is it okay if I use Tsukiko as the base? And then, suddenly, Tsukiko's image appeared in Sana's vision. The Philosopher's Stone interim was sending data directly to his visual cortex. Hey, he realized that he had said that out loud and quickly shut his mouth. Then he heard light footsteps coming from downstairs. Sana, what is it? A worried Nana made a face. No, I was just thinking about something, and I said it out loud. I do that sometimes, so don't worry about it. Is that so? If you're not feeling comfortable, tell me. His smile was really adorable. Thank you. If there's anything I need, I'll let you know. Yes. Now if you'll excuse me. The fact that Sana could barely hear his footsteps as he walked away made him think that he was in a hurry to get here because he was so worried about him, and he even felt mildly guilty. By the way, Nana's room was next to the one Sana was using. You're a man, but how cute. But Sana-chan, that's Baragaru's errand boy, so don't get any strange ideas. Don't say that in Tsukiko's figure and voice. And don't imitate my tone of voice. I know you can pull out such functions in data, because that's already my top priority. Roger that. I get it. You seem to have much better hearing than that, so you should be careful. It's not good if people think you're talking to someone else, and it was a problem if it was someone other than Nana or Baragaru. Of course, it was also a problem if people think you're a dangerous person mumbling to yourself. There are people sniffing around about me, and I have to be careful, so you'd better pull your weight. So, what's with all the hustle and bustle and Tsukiko-san being the base? It's only natural for me to want to be the ideal image of a woman, since I'm always seen up close like this, right? No, even if you say it's natural, the question was, why Tsukiko? Or maybe it was the subjective view of Washu, the creator of the Philosopher's Stone interim. I'm sorry. You don't want to be with your wife's mother? But in less than 100 years, you'll be married to your 5th or 6th group of wives, right? Don't talk about it like it's a series of toys. What's with those numbers? There were already 4 of them in the first round. Karen and the others were scheduled for the second round, and Fuku-chan's group seemed to be a certainty. That brought him to the third installment. Sena was confused when he was told that there would be 2 or 3 more, as if it were a matter of course. As for the marriage issue, he had given up thinking about it. Since Sena has been told to his face that it was a political marriage, he had no right to decide. And in the first place, marriage itself was out of his mind. The appearance of a woman who said that she would be willing to marry Sena would be a miracle, a situation that would make him doubt her sanity or confirm that it was a dream. So if she said so, there was no way that Sena could refuse. But yes, if I base my work on Sakiko-san, I will feel somewhat defeated. If that is the case, it would be good to borrow Sauron's figure, since the magical element and this world are the reason for my independence as an individual. The most important thing to remember is that the flower of fantasy is the elf, and the elf is a high elf. Don't you think so too? Sena? Well, it's certainly the most fantasy-like, but, ugh, the soft tone of her voice was not matched by her forcefulness, and Sena could not help but reply. But more than that, the image projected in his vision was the very Sauron he saw up close, breathtakingly beautiful. Then let's incorporate Washasama's element into it. After all, she's my creator, my mother. And then, her golden hair quickly changed to a dark red. The highlights of her slightly stiff, cat-like hair shone in rainbow colors like the surface of a CD, depending on how the light hit it, giving it a metallic texture. The facial structure was also changed to Washu's strong-willed structure while retaining Sauron's beauty. Of course, the ears were still elf ears. What was happening in front of his eyes was just like a character makeover in a video game. The quality of the images was as good as or better than the personalized images of Kariko and her friends that had been installed on NB. Sena could even feel a presence and aura that made it hard to believe that it was an image. And he couldn't help but watch in silence as he admired its divine beauty. Is this what your face looks like for now? Next is. The Philosopher's Stone interim turned to Sena with a mischievous smile that was common to Eri and Washu. The only difference between it and Eri and Washu's is that he couldn't feel any evil in it. She was wearing a gown made of a thin fabric like those worn by ancient Greeks, but the silhouette of her body was faintly visible through it. Although her base was Sauron, her slender body was neutral and could be taken as either male or female. What the hell? Then her body, like her face, transformed into that of a woman with soft curves. It was just like the birth of Venus. The big problem here was that no matter how hard he tried to look away or close his eyes, he could still see the figure. It was fortunate that she was not naked, but even so, the weave of the gown, with its fine vertical lines, brought out the three-dimensionality of her body in a very vivid and sensational way. It showed a three-dimensionality more destructive than nudity. This kind of provocation was Amane's and Jaikiran's specialty, but Amane had Kariko to hold her in check, and Jaikiran had Karen coming to stop her right away. However, there was no Kariko or Karen to rely on here. In other words, the only way to resist the limbs in front of him was his own not-so-strong willpower. The only fortunate element was that she was not a real person. Oh my, Sena-san. Do you think I'm just an image? The Philosopher's Stone, interim, quickly reached for Sena's right hand and grabbed it. What? I feel your hand. Sena's right hand could properly feel the slightly cool but soft hand of the Philosopher's Stone, interim. And as she pulled his hand closer, Sena's actual hand began to move to match the image. Ufufa. You don't seem to understand why I'm in Sena-san's life. What? Sena's right hand was guided by the Philosopher's Stone, interim, and pressed firmly against her breast, not her cleavage, but right at her heart. Hey, Philosopher's Stone. It was better than being pressed against her breasts, but his hand was still positioned in the valley where he could feel the swell of both breasts. The soft feeling that came from this was unmistakably the same as the image in front of his eyes, and it was more than enough to make him feel a strong sensation. He tried his best to hold back the voice that was about to leak out. You can feel my heartbeat, can't you? Seina's hands could definitely feel the thumping of her heartbeat. Even though it was obviously based on data, the detailed tactile sensations of the fabric and body heat were very real. This was a good example of how virtual reality, when mastered, could be just like reality. Did you forget that Washu, my mother, is a philosopher? You can't be sure that the me you see before your eyes is just a virtual image, can you? It is possible for a man and a woman to have intercourse, and it is also possible for me to create a child by combining Seina's genetic information with mine. We can't do that here, but we can have a baby from your genetic information in a medical culture tank in the Kamadake. What's so special about? It's so powerful. Well, since you're here, why don't you try? The previously calm expression of the Philosopher's Stone, interim, twisted in embarrassment. Her eyes moistened and her cheeks flushed. It was a destructive force comparable to the real Jaikirin. Hey, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. That's just too much, no matter what. In the first place, even if it is a male-female activity, the Philosopher's Stone is not here in real life, so if you look at it objectively, it would be a very dumb scene. The sex between a man and a woman was just an event in the brain, just like the virtual sex that Kenneth had in various ways was only real to him. In any case, if he didn't stop, his dignity and everything else would be shattered. It's too vain to think about what I have to do afterwards. No, before that, there's no excuse for Kariko and the others, and this is someone else's house. To masturbate in a stranger's home was rude. He couldn't complain, even if he got kicked out as soon as he was caught. In addition, I have a delusional wife. What would others think if they found out that he had sex with his imaginary wife, the Philosopher's Stone interim, in his brain and had a child with her? In fact, if Kariko found out about it, she was going to have to go too. Indeed, objectively speaking, I'm the ultimate pain in the ass. But I'm certainly here to stay. Why are you trying to do so much in the first place? Even if you're independent as an individual, isn't it a bit strange? He couldn't understand how she could think of Seina so much as to show that he could even make a child. Is that what you're programmed to do? So many crazy things came to his mind. The previous generation NB had been too much, but now that the Philosopher's Stone had been installed in his body, there was no way for him to escape, and he could not let other people recognize his abnormal behavior. In the first place, I am here to help you, Seina. In order to serve you, I exist only for you. And I am a woman. Then the conclusion is obvious, isn't it? Wait a minute. I'll admit that the first three are okay. But the last, isn't it wrong to assume that you're a woman? I don't like the taste of mechanical assistance. In fact, Seina-san requested me to speak normally. I understood that you at least wanted me to react as a person. Isn't it okay if it's a man? Do you prefer me to be a brainiac or a Shota? Or do you want to make friends with your brain and think you're not a poser? My brain wife has all kinds of problems. My brain friend has more room for sympathy in the situation. Mother said, Kokoku. It's better for women to make announcements in the brain, so I said it that way, so it can't be helped. By the way, the ability of this part is not a function as NB, but an instinct, so it was well protected. Perhaps it was a recording, or perhaps it was the power of the Philosopher's Stone interim, but the dialogue was in Washu's voice, which was a nice touch. Moreover, the extra function, or instinct, was also preserved in case of emergency, which was a joke. Shit. You're just like Eri after all. Tenchi-senpai was right. To be precise, Washu plus Neja was the source of all this. Eri followed their traditions. He was following the correction. That was his character and a natural consequence of self-responsibility. He was just born in a later time than Washu and the others. Seina knew that's what the Galaxy Academy Philosophy Department was all about, a place where like-minded people came together. Seina, you're the main reason why I became an individual so soon. My mother expected it to happen a little further down the road. So, when you say that, did you expect to be an individual someday? Seina-san's probability bias is too stimulating in many ways. It's truly checkered, with many stimuli to receive, and it's full of elements that can trigger an individual. Above all, the number of rare situations that an individual encounters that can be classified as peculiar is comparable to the amount gathered in the Galaxy Academy Central Database, so it's only natural that it would accelerate the growth of AI explosively. Sana couldn't help it, because in a person's lifetime, there were daily situations that could be bragged about to everyone that this was a terrific experience. But isn't there a little something called deadweight? I mean, I feel like I'm jumping to conclusions too fast, or is that just my imagination? For some reason, a high percentage of the women around Sana have never heard of deadweight, and those are the ones who do not avoid you, but rather favor you. Therefore, it is natural that my learning function actively learns and accumulates their behavior patterns. And then there is the establishment of the individual. In other words, I think, therefore I am, but there is no word for self-restraint in my dictionary, lol. So, this is how it happened. The environment in which one grows up in is very important. Don't say that so solemnly. But you're absolutely right, though. He wasn't crying about being lost as he was about this situation. That, and we're of one mind. Unlike other wives and potential wives, we are together at all times. Wouldn't it be better to love each other rather than bicker? That's true, but... No. Wait a minute. Love each other is not the right word. You're an NB to begin with, you know. People are. Don't say anything else. Sana stopped speaking the last word unconsciously. However, his refusal was understood by his opponent. I see, is that so? Suddenly, the tone of the Philosopher's Stone's voice plummeted, and her expression fell to the point where Sana felt a little uneasy. If you really don't like that I'm bothering you, the self-destruct function will leave the minimum. Functions will be maintained. What do you mean? You mean reset? This would be the self-destruction of some auxiliary functions. If I, the individual, destroy and delete the functional part, only the minimum responsive functionality will remain as before. The data and functions that were inaccessible will soon be restored. What? Then what about you? I'm sorry I can't help you. I'm sorry I can't help you. I'm sorry that I can't help you. I tried my best to be of use to you, and I studied a lot. I've only been alive for 52 days, 10 hours, 22 minutes, and 35 seconds, so I'm still immature. And finally, the Philosopher's Stone, interim, began to cry. Sana was bewildered by the sudden change. Because Sana told me that I'm not needed, foretelling you there's no need for me, Sana. I'm not saying you're not necessary. But talking about having a child is just, it's too sudden, right? At this point, the idea of her being NB had completely slipped Sana's mind. He had completely recognized the Philosopher's Stone, interim, as a living being. I thought that since Big Sis Fuku became Sana's bride, I would be like her, and I wanted to be like her. But I can't help you, can I? She was an adult in appearance, but her sad appearance, her crying, was like that of a child. Of course, Sana's intuition assured him that it was not a vicious ulterior motive and joke like Aries. That's why he was confused. Oh, I see. That's what you're talking about. Even though it may be an adult in its abilities, the Philosopher's Stone was like a newborn baby when it was activated, or rather, when it was in its individual state. It had knowledge, but because it had little experience, it had no sense of what that knowledge was and could not use it at its own will. And the fact that it had advanced abilities made things even more complicated. However, it's still not settled whether the pseudo-personality of a program is considered a human being or just a program. Only astral beings were legally entitled to human rights. This was due to the Academy's ability to create highly programmed personalities. There were many people who had transferred them to bodies and raising them normally for tens or hundreds of years. Although they did not have human rights, they were recognized as human beings by the people around them, and many of them blended into the lives of people. For this reason, they were registered as pseudo-personalities, and if their behavioral records were regularly reviewed and there were no problematic behaviors, the pseudo-personality was granted the right to exist and was treated like a person. If they intentionally harmed others, they were subject to the same penalties as people and were imprisoned. Which means it's very messy and complicated.